there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Like sign. Okay, that'll go by for the day. So I guess we should have taken roll probably before we did that. So ask the clerk to take the roll then. Eight present. Quorum is present. So why don't we, for the record, well, I guess we can go ahead and take Fowler's bill by for the day without a vote on that. So the next bill on the agenda would be House Bill 58, Delegate Davis.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm honored to have the only bill in committee today, so I guess everyone's attention on this. This House Bill 58, a number of y'all have been here for a few years, have seen numerous times, 2014, 2015, 2016, was vetoed by a governor, and all this bill does is it says that no locality, when it comes to a procurement contract.
Delegate Davis, may I interrupt you just for a second?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a substitute on?
Oh, I'm very sorry, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do. There's a substitute, and my apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Ask the clerk to publish the substitute. Is that online, or do you have a?
It will be on my
Okay.
And while that's coming forward, I can explain the substitute does identically what the initial introduced bill does. It just addresses a prevailing wage bill that happened to pass a couple years ago that need to be addressed as well, Mr. Chairman.
It is up. Okay. I'll entertain a motion then to adopt the substitute.
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Delegate Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 58, all it does is says that no locality can establish a minimum wage floor or require additional benefits to be paid by an employer who's awarded a local government contract. Typically, as we've all seen in Davis-Bacon type wages at the federal level, these policies increase the cost of procurement for roadways and other construction by about 20%. It also harms our small businesses. What they do is they allow union-based shops, in many cases out-of-state union-based shops, the ability to compete against our Virginia small businesses and non-union shops. This bill particularly removes the requirement that localities utilize prevailing wages when they do this, and actually prevents them from doing so. It just lets the market dictate what the price is for the procurement of projects and services in the Commonwealth of Virginia and these localities, and then requires that bid to go forward, as we all know it already does. That's why I'm asking for this, and there's a number of people, Mr. Chairman, that would love to testify also with this bill.
Anyone have any questions for Delegate Davis? Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would ask the patron on this if he could just talk about the localities specifically that are currently engaging the practice that he knows of. I know you and I had discussed it was Arlington and Charlottesville that you had mentioned before. If you could speak to basically what issues have come up in those two localities regarding this practice, who's actually been affected, and who's receiving contractors right now that you think are basically coming about in an unfair way.
Sure. So the two localities I'm aware of actually have been doing this well before 2014. It's Arlington and Charlottesville. I won't say they're unfair practices. What I will say is they're inflationary rates. The awards, I'm sure, are done properly through the bid process, but there's a requirement that the bids shall not be under a certain level, which raises the cost of those projects to localities. And in many cases, being that the state of Virginia does matching with some of these projects, it actually increases the Commonwealth's match to the locality for some of these projects as well.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, my question to the patron would be that if there is a locality in this case, whether it's the city of Charlottesville or whether it's the county in Arlington, if they are basically using that criteria because they're basically trying to use a sort of quality control more or less to it, and that they're saying that, hey, if you can match this, if you're able to, more or less, pay the certain wage, we expect a certain quality that's going to come out of it, and usually it's going to show up in the contract. Are there situations where they have had this sort of procurement practice where they were not able to receive the sort of quality that would have actually justified the taxpayer expense that basically comes with it in the first place?
Sure, Delegate, I think that's a great question. Having served in local government, I've seen a number of these RFPs go out, and they're rather large, and it dictates the quality they expect, the warranties they expect, and the vendors price their proposals accordingly. So I'm not aware of any, nor would I expect that the quality would be less on any proposal because the proposed RFPs are the bids come in with the anticipation and the expectation to meet the required qualities of work, the warranty is to be provided, and it's reflected in the price that is offered, competitive or otherwise, by the vendors.
Yeah, Delegate Price.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask the patron, we heard from an organization that is worried about the safe working conditions within this. I wanted to just read a snippet. Without appropriate compensation, the bid or project may be bid to lowest bidders who may hire untrained workers at lower wages to cut costs. This may result in unsafe working conditions as well as completion of projects that may be deemed unsafe in the future. There are many past examples where untrained workers died on a project. So can you speak to how this would impact positively or negatively the safety of working conditions for those that are doing the job?
Sure. No, Delegate, thank you for the question. I would say that in your statement it said it may. I'm not aware of any situation where there was an unsafe working environment because the proposal was bid too low. And I would not expect there to be. These, once again, the safety requirements, also OSHA dictates what safety measures need to be taken inside these government contracts, and they are bid appropriately. I can tell you, having used to do this type of work in fiber optic cabling and low voltage cabling, that, for example, if you put someone into a hole 6 feet down in the ground, you have to have a tripod that, God forbid, something happened, you could wrench him up, even if your employee was 6 feet tall. So all of that is dictated, and everyone must adhere to that. Additionally, you had mentioned the completion of a project. One thing I am aware of, I've seen this myself, and I've talked to other vendors. In many cases, the vendors that do these local government projects also do private sector projects. And the private sector projects, in some cases, in all cases, do not require these prevailing wages. So the employees may get as much as $3-4 less an hour on those than they would with these other scenarios. And what we have found is it takes longer to do a government contracted project because the workers on those contracts know they're getting paid more, and they tend to lengthen out that project. And that is an issue that many vendors have had, and I've experienced it myself.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Price.
Thank you. And so I just want to make sure that I'm getting in on the words that you're saying too. So in response to Delegate Rome's question, just want to see, so for Arlington and Charlottesville, do you have a demonstrated impact to small business? And then it just seems like the scope of this is for everyone. So if Arlington and Charlottesville are liking the way that this is going, then if it's not coming in our area of Hampton Roads, then why take it away for everyone if it's optional at this moment?
Well, it's two things. The first I would say that that Arlington and Charlottesville did this even before 2014. And the reason you take it away is it increases the cost of government. It also increases the cost that the state share is on these projects. This is not good practice. And as far as do I have empirical evidence of having lost a contract, small business losing a contract? No, but if when you look at anything about prevailing wages and it's all out there, it dictates ever from the beginning of Davis-Bacon and why Davis-Bacon prevailing wages began to begin with on down is to allow the larger union shops the ability to compete against the smaller, innovative small businesses, in this case in Virginia. So I would say eliminating this practice decreases the cost of government at the local and state level, and it allows our small businesses to compete more fairly because their overhead is much less.
Any members have any questions for Delegate Davis? Thank you, Delegate Davis.
Thank you.
You know, one procedural change this year that we're dealing with, obviously, is we have both people participating in person, and virtually as well. It's my intention to take the testimony of people who appear in person first, and then reach out to our virtual community if anyone would be inclined to testify that way. Along that line, we have Gretchen Heel. Is that correct? Ms. Heel, if you'll come forward. You state where you're from.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Gretchen Heel from the Hampton Roads Chamber, and we support Delegate Davis's bill here, in part because of what it will do to help small businesses and our SWAM businesses, not only that are members with us, but other chambers throughout the state.
Understand. Any members have any questions? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask the witness with Hampton Roads Chamber, were there any localities within Hampton Roads that had expressed an interest in utilizing this optional law?
We have heard some feedback on the Peninsula Chamber. I don't want to speak for them, but a couple businesses there that have had some issues, and of course some in Norfolk and Virginia Beach that see it as a concern. They haven't run into a specific problem yet, but they would like to have more opportunities to bid. Most of them are smaller businesses, so have more limited capacity when competing against a larger group.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Price.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Let me be more clear with my question. That was my fault. Have any of the localities shown or given a notice to the Hampton Roads Chamber that they were planning to utilize this on the localities?
Not that I'm aware of, not now, no.
Okay, thank you.
But if they do, I'll follow up with you. Sure.
Come forward and state your name.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brandon Robinson with the Associated General Contractors. We represent commercial construction in the Commonwealth. We support the bill for many of the reasons that he outlined. The 20% number is a number that we've seen across the country. That prevailing wage does raise the cost of construction. It also skews the market where you may have places where you've got a procurement job next to an open market or a commercial private job, and workers are moving back and forth, or the wages maybe for a project just across the street are completely skewed. And so for those reasons, we support the delegate's bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else physically here for the bill? Do we have anyone here wishing to testify against the bill? Madam Clerk, do we know if there's anyone in virtual land that is interested in this today? we do not. Looks like no one else participating. Okay, having heard the testimony, of course, we act by motion. Anyone have a motion with respect to this bill?
Move the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Delegate Wampler. Is there a second to the motion?
Second. Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Rowan.
Mr. Chairman, speak to the motion.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is just strictly just for public consumption, basically, because we had a substitute. I just want to read basically the section of code that's being struck. It's only two sentences long, so everyone can follow along at home, because I think what was published here versus what just got up online, this is just surely for transparency purposes. And so basically the part that's being struck is after the words, notwithstanding any other provisions of this chapter, the following is struck. Any locality may adopt an ordinance requiring that when letting contractors for public works paid for in whole or in part by funds of the locality, or when overseeing or administering a public contract, its bid specifications, project agreements, or other public contracts applicable to the public works shall require bidders, offerers, contractors, and subcontractors to pay wages, salaries, benefits, and other remuneration to any mechanic, laborer, or worker employed, retained, or otherwise hired to perform services in connection with the public contract at the prevailing wage rate. Each public contract of a locality that has adopted an ordinance described in the section shall contain a provision requiring that the recommendation to any individual performing the work of any mechanic, laborer, or worker on the work contracted to be done under the public contract shall be at a rate equal to the prevailing wage rate.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate Wampler.
I'd like to amend the motion to report the substitute.
I'm seeing it, they're not. I did. That's why it's here.
Are we on the board?
No, that's all right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're not ready. Let's close it. Yeah, close the roll. All right, we have a motion by Delegate Wampler to report the substitute. Is there a second to that motion? Okay. Anybody wish to speak to that motion? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote then. Ayes 5, nays 2, the motion would carry.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill
Chairman.
reports. Thank you, Delegate Davis. I believe that completes the docket today. Thank you all for your patience with me. And I guess the committee will stand adjourned.